Well, news to tell you, the camera has returned. You can probably tell because, well, I just wouldn't be able to walk around like this without you feeling like you were going for a bumpy ride. And the sun today, fantastic. It's been raining for days and days and days. And in the forecast, there's days and days and days more rain to come. But today is that island and I'm going to make the most of it. So I've been bringing some things over from the house. We've got some compost, which I bought late last year because I always find that I'm short of it when I decide I want to sow. And I think I'm going to sow today. And well, we've got that kitchen waste, which is going into the composters. I've got a delivery coming tomorrow, so I think that's going to be in the rain, but there we are, that's life. Just having a look at my neighbour's garlic. Well, certainly one variety is coming up well. I think he's put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in there, and he's got one that's coming up. And excuse the glare of the sun for a minute whilst I get this down to the compost bins. And in here I've got a couple of things which I want to show you. So I've got a couple of pumpkins which, like the potatoes, have gone, and this time of year that does happen. This one's not going to hold up too much, but we'll break those up and put them in the bin. And a couple of sprouts which I had a fantastic feast of sprouts during the Christmas period, but they are gone. So a little bit to add there. Otherwise, the plot's looking good. I've been having lots of thoughts about this cold frame because, well, I was thinking I ought to construct a lid for it so I can make maximum use of it as a cold frame if that is required. And I've got a sort of invention type lid which I'm thinking of, something not quite so permanent, not requiring wood. So I'm going to need to put some holes in, I think, various places along this. Not going to do that today, but yeah, I'm developing a plan, so that's something for a coming video, I think. The wind over the last couple of days has been very high indeed. You can see my net's blown over there. I probably didn't secure it well enough when I was harvesting the swede. I got a couple of these broccoli which are now leaning over again. This one looks like it might have broken. Yep, it has. So that one's a goner, unfortunately. And the one in the back, well, I can rescue that. I'm not too worried about the purple sprouting broccoli because I've got such a lot, but I will just get those organised today. And we've had a lot of leaves falling off on the Cavolo Nero style kale. So a bit of cleaning up there at some point. And this is the broccoli that's been growing for, well, nearly a year now. And the heads have gone to mush. So they got really stuffed during that really cold weather. But yeah, that's interesting. That one's fine. And it's starting to go to flower. Now, these really are old, and I think I'm going to be taking those out because I just don't think I'm going to get much off of them. Maybe leave that end one in and see how that gets on. But you can see all those barrels that I put here, unless I put something in the base of them or they were filling up with water, well, they just blew everywhere. I've still got one cabbage there, which, yeah, it's okay in the middle. It's looking a bit devastated around the edges, but it'll still feed us for a meal, I'm sure. And into the Polytunnel, just to see the work I'd done in my last video. And I'm starting to plan in here as to what I'm going to do with the carrot bed. So what I'm thinking, I'm not sure whether I'm going to get to it today, but I might. What I'm thinking is pull my seed trays out because I'm going to do a bit of sowing, I think. And then the soil that's in there, which is really ultra spent, not going to give much nutrient at all, that's exactly what I want for the carrots. I'd like to get that out, perhaps put it there or in the wheelbarrow, and then put just a thin layer of decent compost low down, and then take the material from there, put it back on top, and then take a lot of this, because this, like that carrot bed, is dry and not really full of nutrients. So I'm thinking if I can get a lot of that in there, fill it up a bit deeper, I will have created a big layer of nutrient-free soil with a very low level nutrient-full layer. And my plan, of course, is that the carrots grow down into that to feed, and that results in a bigger, larger, longer carrot. All good fun. Nice to have plans. Doesn't always work out, but it's fun trying. So once I've taken quite a lot out of here, I'm not going to move that, so I take it from the two ends, then I would backfill with some of the extra compost that I've got, so that this becomes a much more nutrient full bed ready for growing in this year. So all I've got to decide today is what I'm going to sow where, and of course it's onions in the main, and I'm thinking I will probably end up putting them on the bench, and I'm probably going to grow them in a fairly decent root trainer, because I'm going to be very precise about sowing this year, in that I do not need an awful lot of seeds. I don't want loads and loads of spare plants. So that's the thought process in here. We'll see whether that comes in today or not. Just got to go outside and have a look what outside's looking like. If it's going to rain a lot, then doing something in the Polytunnel is always very attractive. So just got to get my head around whether I want to work outside today or inside. Looks like a bit of frost on here. Yeah, there's frost on there. So there was a frost last night. Surprising, it turned from rain to cold and seemed to get frost there. Look at these shards of glass, which seem to come out of compost or out the ground from somewhere anyway. Right, yes, so this area is high up on my priorities now. I want to just clear back a little bit, because I sort of threw a lot of stuff down in here which I'll probably regret. But if I can clear this patch, then I can start to work on it in terms of levelling. I've got a brick path in there which needs to come out, because I just don't think it's a good idea just to leave it in. Otherwise, if there is any movement in the ground, then it won't move there and it will move in other areas. So yeah, I think it makes perfect sense to be outside for a while anyway. I think I'll get cracking on with this. In my head, these bricks are going to be part of the solution to raising the barrels and the IBC tanks. And so I'm just storing them all up, and I don't know, what I found then was that if you stack them too thin, you end up with a leaning tower. Right, well, these covers have served a purpose over the last few months. I'm hoping that they have stemmed any weed growth, so that the area that I'm working on is just soil, and that looks to have been reasonably successful there. I'll stick these up on the top for now. Hopefully it'll be true under here as well. Not too bad. So it just makes working at flattening this area that much more achievable, or at least simple. Right, put that on top. I've got one hell of a boulder here which I don't really want to roll very far. Get this back. And probably this as well. I just want to try and work out how I'm going to get from one level to another. And I'm thinking that I'm going to have a step here and just keep this level, perhaps work at the other levels, because I think the shed will probably cross from this lower bit to this higher bit when I get it eventually. So if that could be level, I think I'll pull this over here and just see what sort of level I can get, and then just put something in this edge so it doesn't constantly break down. And I can wait and do that later, but first of all, get the bricks out, get the wood out, perhaps fold that little bit of membrane back as well, and then I'm just working on the surface, which in this weather is really quite relaxing. Right, onward. I thought it might take me a little while to get into using this camera again, but I think it's hardwired in my head, so it's going quite well. Unless when you're watching this, it looks a bit odd. Everything went well. Right, so I've got a blank canvas. Don't you just love having a blank canvas? I think as I walked back there and tried to sort the camera for the shot, it occurred to me that the slope actually isn't that great. It does pay to stand back and have a look at it and see what it looks like. So I'm going to get behind the camera now and just take a gander. And yeah, I think if I move the soil step on the left, I can get fairly level fairly quickly. And I'll move that wheelbarrow. You can see there's a bit of grass growing in the front, and as I want about 2 foot, maybe just 2.5 foot for my walkway, then I can come up to this edge. So part of what I need to do is to dig down in there, get that grass out, and probably fill this trench that I've now got with that, and then start pulling the soil over. So I'm going to use my trusty Chillington hoe and just do a bit of basic levelling. What's important with this is that I'm going to put the shed on here. Ultimately, I need it to settle, and the longer I can give it to naturally bed down, the better. So I think I'll get on with just a bit of rough levelling, and I might leave it then and let things work themselves out for a while. Right, let's have a look. Well, that was a good bit of exercise. Blew the cobwebs away. And yeah, it does give me a really good idea about how much levelling there is to do. And it's not a lot. The biggest issue is going to be this area, but I'm beginning to think perhaps have another step here rather than try and move all that soil this way. At least that's my first impressions. And I think what I'll do is just rake this now, get the lumps off, bring them this way, fill out this back area, maybe cover over a little bit of the grass that's there, and that'll give me, I think, the first shot at settling it down. And I'll walk all over it, and then that'll be another blank canvas ready to come back and take another look at. I always find it helps me to walk away from these things and come back another day and either find that I was right or I was clearly wrong. But either way, it benefits. So rake over, bit of a walk over, and then I think that's the first step in this area. Well, that's not a bad start. It's very clear when you take the bumps out the top that I got work to do down this end, and I do think I'm going to end up pulling another 4 or 5 inches off the top and bringing it this way, because I'm going to end up with a big job this end unless I do, which means this will be in a bit of a gully, which I'm not sure that's great for drainage. I might have to think about putting some channels in here to drain out, but we'll see. I can always work on that in due course. I just don't have to get a load of chippings for the purpose. So it may be that I dig a channel at the back and then the water drains off and into that and out. Something like that anyway, but plenty of time for those sort of plans. First step is getting this level. Right, put my tools away, get on to something else. Well, I've got to try and keep costs to a minimum this year, especially if I'm going to invest in a shed. So I'm thinking I don't really want to be buying an awful lot of compost. It's almost inevitable that you have to buy some, but I'm thinking all my potatoes this year I'm going to grow in my own compost. And I've got a fair amount left here, so I'm going to fill enough buckets so that I'm ready just to plant it, and then I can empty the bucket each time just to put the potatoes in and put some more compost on top. So I just need to get the quantities right. These buckets are a devil to get apart once they've been slotted in, and especially after cold weather they got sort of rigid and very difficult, so I'll spend some time sorting them out. But yeah, simple is just get a load of this compost and do one bucket at a time, and then I'm going to move them up on the plot because I'm getting out of this area, and I'm going to try not to lift too much at once, perhaps take one bucket at a time just to get myself over there. Right, there we are, simple, one bucket ready for potatoes. I'll take that one and get the others done. Okay, 10 potato buckets. I think that's enough for now. And it's amazing, you have so much plans for compost and then it uses up so quickly. So I've just got a corner in there left. There's a bit on the floor here, which is good stuff. It's only the accumulation of manure over the years. So I've definitely got a barrow or two actually on the ground. But when you think that's 10, and I'd like to use some in the Polytunnel, well, there isn't a lot there for that. And I think I've still got one bed. Yeah, I've got the Swede bed, which I haven't put anything on yet at all. So I'm not going to have enough, bottom line, which is incredible really, but there you go. It just shows you how much you use. But I will need to put some in that Swede bed just over the top. I could sliver some off the top of this one, and I could make that one fairly shallow, but in all honesty, moving it twice doesn't make a lot of sense. So I think I'm going to end up pulling some Swedes and piling a load there at some point. Just sort of know I've got that bed covered, and then anything left, anything I can get up from the floor, head into the Polytunnel with it. And that carrot bed idea that I've got. Right, well, I think I'll move those steadily, one by one, up to this area. Just put them in here. This bed, this whole set of beds is just dormant now until we get to the growing season. So it's a good place to store things for a while. And ultimately, those potato pots are going to end up somewhere over here. So let's get them over. Well, I have to confess, it's been quite physical this morning. He's good. After spending an awful lot of time eating and drinking over the festive period, it's nice to get the muscles going again. But I think that's me done for this morning. And well, there's jobs are queuing up, but that's fine. There's always something to do on the plot. It's nice to get those barrels or pots of compost ready, and this area is underway. Well, I hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you did, why not like and subscribe? And if you do, click on the bell as well, and you'll get my updates every Wednesday and every Sunday at 8 PM. Hope you've had a nice day in the sunny weather. Good times.